Good morning, and welcome to a very special edition of the Scotland Rugby News podcast. We're not midweek anymore. For this week, we are Saturday morning. My name is Bruce Aitchison from Happiness Egg Shaped. I'll get to be your host, and I'm joined by Gavin Harper. But before we kick off, a quick word from our sponsor. Scotland Rugby News is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. There are thousands of jobs all across Scotland, and you can find the one for you, S1 Jobs. So go on, start your search. Gavin, it's been a very quiet week. I mean, there's hardly anything to report. You must have almost had a holiday this week. Let's start the AGM Wednesday night. How did that go?
The meeting itself was fairly uneventful. It all sort of passed. There was a few questions from the floor for various people, but to be honest, it was all kind of run of the mill, maybe as you would expect. And then the press got a sit down with Alex Williamson after, and I think obviously the main topic of discussion in that, as I've written this week, was Gregor's future. And he was unwavering in his support for Gregor despite the results. I think that's probably not a huge surprise, given Gregor just been given a new contract, 8 weeks before. Yes, results have been poor in the autumn, but I think I wasn't hugely surprised that Williamson said Gregor had his full support. I think where he possibly tripped himself up a wee bit was he said a line, "It doesn't matter if we win or lose, it's about making progress." And that has annoyed people because, and then he then backtracked and said, "Well, obviously results do matter. So which is it?" So we're not really sure. But I think the other thing is, well, Alex Williamson's been quite honest from the start that he's not a rugby expert. I think prior to having the job he's got now as CEO, he's had season tickets. So he looks at all these things very much through the lens of a rugby fan, but somebody who's not necessarily an expert. And I think he's guided in a lot of these things by David Nucifora, who seems to have the kind of overarching, almost final say, I would say, on big rugby calls. And, as he explained, if David Nucifora tells him Gregor Townsend's a good coach, then he almost has to take Nucifora's word for it. So, yeah, I think that's where we're at with that. I'm not hugely surprised, but I think this topic is going to come up again during the Six Nations if results aren't what Scotland want.
The topic's only going to come up though on social media, in rugby clubs, and on podcasts. It's not a topic within the corridors of Scottish Rugby. The contract is there. We're not at that football state yet. It's coming if fans boo and say they're going to protest, but as you know, MD who stands next to me for long enough will hear me bump my gums about the same stuff over and over again. Murrayfield's going to sell out.
Yeah.
I saw somebody, I can't remember who, had posted it'll always sell out against England, but not sure about France. I got a message from a mate of mine in France saying, could I get him 25 tickets?
How did you get on with that?
Aye, very well. But again, even Italy, I still think it's going to sell out because the prices are slightly more reduced, and there will be people now who are saying that the only game I'll be able to go to is Italy because of cost. Now, the ticket prices and ticket allocations are for another day and probably not for us, but there's a whole load of stuff swimming around in there. I don't disagree with some of the frustration. In fact, I definitely don't disagree with some of the frustrations because, like all fans, and that's all I am, is a fan with a platform, I want Scotland to win. I want them to play well. I want it to be full of players that I love and respect and get to watch regularly. And I want clubs to be thriving and feel supported. And some of those things, and some of it I think is maybe PR, some of it's communication, but Gregor's in post until after the World Cup. What I really hope, And whether it's Alex Williamson or David Nucifora, to be honest, I'm not sure I fully understand any of the processes or makeup of the hierarchy. But what I hope is that there is a really decent plan for who is coming in after Gregor, and what the knock-on effect that is, because you would like to think that Edinburgh and Glasgow, not just for players, but for support staff, coaches, management, logistics, operations, Edinburgh and Glasgow is a way to show your worth to be promoted to Scotland. Everybody appears to be saying it's Franco. Personally, I would like to think that with a 2-year run-in, if Franco's the best person, by all means give him the job. But after the World Cup, there has potential to be some really attractive coaches. Now, doesn't matter what position Scotland are in, and this thing about loyalty in sport, we can come to another day, but being an international coach in a team that will be in the top 10 is attractive to almost everybody other than Rassie Erasmus, Razor, there's Steve Borthwick. There's a handful of coaches who will never coach Scotland. There are a handful of coaches who might never get to coach their own country, but would love to coach Scotland.
Yeah.
So we're never going to be short of supporters, bums on seats, or suitors for jobs like head coach, defence coach, scrum coach, line-out coach, contact coach, off-the-ball coach, strength and conditioning coach, mental skills coach, blah, blah, blah. People are desperate for jobs at the top table, and Scotland are at the top table. So, and I'm not saying that then means that our voice is not worth anything, but realistically, it's not going to have a huge amount of impact on the decisions that are made.
No, I agree, and I think you're right. We're not at this football stage yet where, there's a bit of frustration about a coach, and then all of a sudden Gregor's out the door. I don't think that's where we're at, but I think this is an interesting one. What are Six Nations expectations? How bad would results need to be to warrant a new head coach? I got the impression they could be as bad as you like.
And they are, because he's in until the World Cup. There's security. A contract in rugby, I think, still gives security. In football, if Scotland finish 5th, that coach is at the door. I mean, Steve Clarke was under pressure 6 months ago, and now he's king of Scotland, and he can wear face paint and flash his bum to the English. Like, he's the absolute hero. Scott McTominay is the next James Bond.
Yeah.
The Six Nations is going to be really tough.
It is going to be tough, and I think, I was picking through the games last week. Scotland obviously start against Italy in Rome, and we know what happened 2 years ago.
We do. I was there. Can't believe it.
I know.
I'm not allowed to go this time.
But that's got every possibility of being really, really tough. Then
the other bit to that, sorry, but the other bit to that is for Italy. That's we're at home against Scotland. Everything's going into that game, and likely first game you're picking from your full squad. So Italy, you're looking at that being Italy at full strength at home, absolute target. We have to beat Scotland and get off to a good start, because we might not win another game.
Yeah, exactly. So, Scotland are going to, and Scotland have traditionally not really coped that well when they've been the team with the target on their backs. That's going to be the case in the first game. Then they're going to play England, which is going to be as tough as, I think. And I think, just to touch on that, maybe a year ago, Steve Borthwick was under huge pressure.
Correct.
And people are saying, where is this going? This all feels like just a total mess. And all of a sudden, a couple of bits have clicked. They found a style.
But Steve Borthwick's a man with a plan. Like, and let's get Matt Scott on here, and let's chat to Matt Scott about Steve Borthwick.
Yeah.
Because he's seen it from the inside. Steve Borthwick is a man with a plan. He picks players with a purpose. He's getting pelters for Finn Smith being a generational talent, but Finn Smith doesn't fit. George Ford fits, and he's a phenomenal rugby player.
It's like the England football team.
They can't fit them all in.
They can't get them all in the team. But do you know what? Thomas Tuchel's gone, right, okay, if I need to leave Bellingham on the bench, if I need to leave Foden on the bench, then that's ultimately what I'll do, rather than what Sven did 20 years ago, which was I'm going to play Paul Scholes wide left because I've got to get the best 11 players on the pitch, and it didn't work. Do you know? So there's an obvious method to what Borthwick's done.
Yeah.
But I think it does show there is that curve of like you're almost on the brink of being out the door, and then results start to turn, and all of a sudden, the Steve Clark thing, you're back in favour.
But rugby still gives time, and probably international football. If they were club coaches, they're probably out the door. But international football, you tend to be given a little bit longer. Steve Borthwick, and he's built his coaching team. He brings in a Scotsman to be defence coach.
Yep.
Steve Borthwick's picking who he thinks is the best and the fit that will work with his plan to make it happen. And when you look at, England playing a little bit of the game where their best players are actually on their bench to come on and make sure that in the last half an hour, actually that's our strongest team. Like they're able to play that game. That's not a game we are able to play at the moment. We have to have our best team for 60 minutes, hope we're still in it, and then things keep going. So the Italy, the fixture list's always tough in Six Nations, and you didn't get a chance to warm up necessarily.
No.
Italy used to be a gimme. Well, not for Scotland, but largely a gimme. Now it looks like Wales, but Wales, can they, like Steve Tandale have had longer? They've had, Wales, can he continue to be that bad? I don't think.
Here's also a point. Tandy will know all those players.
If anybody knows Scotland, it's Steve Tandy.
Tandy will also know if we're in with a shout with 15, 20 minutes to go, this team's got the ability to absolutely cave in on itself. So hang in there, lads, and make sure you're within 15 points. And you never know.
Do you know that? Do you know like I was saying, Wales can be, but actually Steve Tandy, man on the inside, it makes what we thought was a gimme that for us that wee bit harder.
Totally, like that game is, and Scotland could conceivably, and it's not a stretch at all, I don't think, to say Scotland could go to Cardiff 0 from 2 and be backs against the walls again. We're back to having discussions, and people are moaning about Gregor, and like they'll be under pressure if that is the state of play. And Tandy knows them. He knows the players. He knows Gregor. He knows exactly how all the coaches work. That is
the flip of that coin. And Gregor talks about this a lot, and being a disciple of Carol Dweck and growth mindset. And every week after a defeat, coaches and players say, "Oh, we'll take the learnings and we'll get better." For a long time against the All Blacks, they were very, very good. For whatever it was, 54 minutes, or they were outstanding. Argentina were never in it. So there's a chance that the learnings of that and the players, Sione, I think, said, we've got to look at ourselves. I think Ewan Ashman said something similar. Finn was talking about their responsibility. So hopefully they land in Italy, they beat Italy, they come home, Scottish crowd goes bananas, we nick a win we go Duncan Hodge style. Finn Russell scores at the back of a mall, kicks his goals, drops a goal in the rain to win it, and we go to Wales 2 from 2. Yeah, so all in the game, love you, like thank you, and I'm not convinced it's a bad team. It's a very young team that is under pressure that no other nation is under. They don't know if they've got a job. They don't know what's going on. That New Zealand team was, to quote my granny, hanging by a thread. Yes. They were patched up and struggling at the end of a very long year, and there's a lot going on there. But I mean, to score a hat trick against the All Blacks, one of 4 people, that's pretty impressive. The All Blacks will be very disappointed with conceding 4 tries against that Welsh team. But
yeah, I think the other point about that Welsh team is, and I get that, like, here's a point. Yeah, always building, never achieving, I think is an interesting phrase, because framed in the sort of, to look at Wales, like for 2031, that squad is going to be in good shape. That squad is going to have loads of caps and loads of experience. And
you say that, but I mean, what the state of Welsh rugby will look like in 2031? They might only have one franchise team player, and they're Wales.
Yeah, exactly. But do you know what I mean? It should, in
Yeah.
theory, they should, for the short term pain, there might be long term benefit. I think that's and if you look at this, like we asked Alex Williamson about this now, do you accept that? And the phrase, I have to say, the phrase "golden generation" was used in the question.
No, it wasn't. Who used it?
Not me.
It better not have been you.
No, it
this
wasn't.
Relationship's over. Go and leave that question up until you're finished talking, because I want to add to it.
But we asked, basically, does this Scotland team now need to win something because, what's coming after might not be as good as Finn or Sione or Blair or whoever? And he kind of alluded to that, but then again, said it's not about winning and losing. I'm not going to set targets for the Six Nations. It's fool's gold to predict that this team should win championships. Look, and I kind of get the point, because, and we've talked about this before, when Dodson came in, Dodson said Scotland are going to win the 2015 World Cup.
Did he not say he was going to eat his hat, or was that me that said that?
I think that was probably you.
I think I maybe said that.
But yeah, I think so. It's. I
that,
get
that had feelings at Ali McLeod in 1978.
Yes, it did. Where are we here?
Sorry, just on that one. Ad Astra stake pool. Like, you must be in the movies. Like, surely you are dialing in from Hollywood. That is impressive. The bit about Gregor hasn't achieved anything, I get, right. I understand that statement, and I'm definitely not arguing against it, because we've won Calcutta Cups, but it's a bit like winning the Ashes. There's only 2 folk can win it. It's like me racing the lamppost with Katie. There's only going to be one winner, but there's only 2 folk in it, and it's usually her. But not many folk win a Six Nations. Not many folk win a World Cup. So there's a lot of people who, in that, like, really stark terms, haven't achieved anything. I suppose it depends what other measures can you have. Like, Gregor Townsend's a British Lions coach, John Dale's a British Lions coach. We had a whole heap of boys are now British Lions. Now, that's not necessarily down to Gregor Townsend, but that's a tough measurement. If Gregor Townsend hasn't achieved anything, well, how big a loser am I? Like, it's I get what you mean. We've not been close to a Six Nations title, but then neither have a lot of teams. Unfortunately, because Wales have had a purple patch, Ireland are in it. France should and will always be strong. England should and always will be strong. We're wee. The Rugby World Cup one is sore, and like, talking about Wales have done well with that win against Japan. If they get a favourable draw and they get out of a World Cup pool, how good is that for that Wales squad?
Yeah.
For us, like, Gregor, when he signs off, if he's not got out of the pool for 3 World Cups, unfortunately, that's how he's going to be remembered. Yeah.
I think, just to touch on this, because there are now a barrage of comments coming in.
Me getting pelters?
No, not necessarily. Folk voicing their opinions. Townsend hasn't won any games against Ireland or South Africa or New Zealand. After 8 years, he probably never will. A change is needed. I think, again, what you were talking about, I think that is another stat that'll frame as
tenure. And James, lots of numbers. I don't disagree with that either, but it's also Ireland have been number one in the world in that period. South Africa have never been stronger in that period. And New Zealand, no Scottish coach has ever beaten New Zealand. So that's again, I get it, and I'm beginning to sound like an apologist, but we're
I'll
a
tell you
really
one thing.
wee country. We're not we're totally biased because it's ours and we want it to win all the time, but it's really tough. We've come around at a time where Ireland have never been better, Italy have never been better. You know, England have been rubbish but still good. Wales have been unbelievable and are now rubbish. South Africa didn't lose really to anybody.
Yeah. I'll tell you the one thing about that is, and for me, I can kind of say, like, I agree with James. You know, I think I've written this. I do think that the time has come. I think 8 years. I actually listened to a podcast yesterday with Gareth Southgate, and the first.
What does he think of Gregor?
Yeah, interestingly, that didn't come up. But the first maybe 5 minutes was about, you know, the tide had turned from supporters. I started to kind of question it before the Euros, and I knew probably going into the Euros that I was becoming a distraction. I think a lot of what he said in the first 5 minutes, if people can find it, it's worth listening to, because I think a lot of it applies to this situation. I think the line he uses, 8 years in any job, particularly in a high performance job, is a long time. And I was aware that, you know, there was a change of voice needed. So I think the first thing to say to James's point is I probably agree that a change may be needed. However, to talk about those games, Ireland and South Africa, I'll come on to, but New Zealand, Scotland have almost never been closer to beating New Zealand. And consistently, it's that last bit of getting over the line, literally. Ireland and South Africa, Scotland are as far away from beating now as they were in 2017, if not further. I have seen no signs in the World Cup games or in the game last autumn, despite what we're told that it was great performance. I don't see that there's any progress against teams that can outpower and outmuscle Scotland.
And and there's a big point. The power, the depth that Ireland and South Africa have got. If we pull that back a little bit, in the URC, Glasgow have beaten South African teams and Irish teams, but Leinster focus a lot on Europe. If we were to put our best Glasgow and best Edinburgh teams against the best Munster and best Leinster teams, that's tough. That's really tough. I'm not sure what the results would be, but those are tough. So that depth in Ireland, and you know, whenever things go wrong with Scotland national team, people pile on about, oh, it's a system, but people kind of forget about that during the good times, and then that doesn't come under a huge amount of scrutiny.
Yeah,
we spent a lot of time talking about Gregor when I asked about the AGM. Is there any more you want to bring up before we move on to what's happening today?
Yeah, we should probably talk a wee bit more about the AGM. So there was a lot of discussion about Gregor. And then we got on to kind of other subjects. So Alex Williamson was asked about tickets. I think there was a suggestion that ticket prices at Murrayfield will go up again, which I know people are annoyed about. So the sort of context to that was, he said games like France, England, New Zealand are the kind of top tier. They are at the stretch limit of what Scottish Rugby feel they can charge supporters. So those games will basically be unaffected as far as I can make out. But the creation of your best friend, the Nations Championship, means obviously there are going to be more of these teams coming to Murrayfield. So basically, I think the tickets will go up for the Nations Championship games, and we won't have, there won't be the opportunity to take what was it, under 12s go free to Tonga, or I think there was a ticket deal for USA as well. So I get his point that obviously when you play better teams, the tickets have to be more expensive. However, I think, where are we going with this? Because we see a situation now. Every 2 years, Scotland fans try and get tickets to go to Dublin. It's they're like Ken's teeth, because the Aviva's so small, and there's an oversubscription from home fans, so we're almost stuck that you can't get a ticket. It feels like Murrayfield's going to go the same way, and will be almost shut off to some sections of supporters.
Yeah.
And then if people are paying 150 quid a goal and they don't like what's happening between the white lines, as Adam says, people have every right to boo the team, because people expect to see something that's worth paying 150 quid for, and the stadium's falling to bits. So I just don't understand how we can ask people to pay £150 every time, and our stadium's not as good, our match day experience is not as good as other countries. And
now I reckon they'll be able to show you feedback that the match day experience is very good. The match day experience doesn't always just focus on the 80 minutes. Listen, Adam, I'm not a fan of ticket prices, but I can't ever condone booing, ever. It's just not. We can't jump up and doing about rugby respect and the way we are, and we boo. But £150 a ticket, I said at the start of the pod, and I'll say it again, folk are going to pay it, and it'll sell out. It might not be the people that, and then we get into a bit of a discussion about who. I saw loads of stuff on social media about the folk that go for one time, and influencers who are at their first rugby game and all that. I have my opinion. I don't enjoy the having to stand up all the time for folk to go out and buy pints. I go to watch rugby. If you do a Mexican wave, I will thumb you in the eye. There's so many bits that frustrate me, and when we talk about new audiences, I love the idea of growing the game and bringing new audiences in, but I don't want it to be at the cost of the loyal audience who has been there through the ups, the downs, the consistency, the lack of consistency, the people who have committed. That does hurt. And we've got a different generation of fans. So of those 67,500 folk that were at that New Zealand game, I would love somebody to be able to do a data analysis of how many of them are members of a rugby club.
Yeah.
And
it's a fair point.
Who are supporting grassroots, and even if they're paying a social membership, if put a condition on your ticket that you can only buy a ticket if you're a member of a rugby club. Anyway, I could bump my gums for a long time about that. Ticket prices are tough, but you look at concerts, you look at going to see Taylor Swift or Billy Joel, or tickets for events are big. A rugby game, an international rugby game now, is an event which is going to incur a pretty sizable cost. But when you can't take in your own drink or picnic, or it becomes even tougher.
Yeah, well, look, I totally agree.
I did. Somebody told me this, and I don't know if this is true, but Twickenham are taking out seats to give more space, so they're actually reducing their capacity, so that the seats are, I don't know if the seats are actually bigger or there's more space between them. Now, I've not actually been able to source if that is true, but I was told.
I hadn't heard that. It's interesting.
And now I'm not the biggest of lads, but when you start man spreading and you've got bigger lads then you do need a bit more space. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah. So I think just to touch on a few of the other points that were raised at the chat after the AGM. Sean Everett, we asked Sean on Tuesday where we were at with his contract. He says he wants to stay, but discussions are ongoing. Alex sounded... I took from that maybe there had been a change. Maybe it had been indicated to Sean he maybe wanted to stay, but maybe that was not the direction of travel. But Alex on Wednesday night said, no, we want Sean Everett to stay as Edinburgh coach. I think so that ticks that. We now know what's happening there. But I don't think that's a huge surprise. That was kind of indicated when Gregor and Franco signed. The women's coach, they're doing final interviews, I believe, this week. So we'll get a decision, I think, soon. I'm pretty confident they're down to the last sort of 2 or 3 candidates there. What were the other topics? David Nucifora, his contract runs out next October. So that would be before, obviously, the next AGM. So it was a chance for us to ask Alex about that. I think it was indicated to me earlier by somebody else who's reasonably well positioned in Scottish Rugby that the preference is for Nucifora, to stay on beyond his time, his current contract. And what that looks like, they're not maybe that sure, but on the record, Alex Williamson certainly said we haven't had those discussions. We've had other things to deal with. So
I'd be surprised if Nucifora doesn't either stay as long as Tooney or he goes beyond Tooney as part of a process, interview, recruitment, mentor, whatever it may be.
Look, it would be disastrous and utterly shambolic from Scottish Rugby to get rid of the guy that they are professing is making, let's call it what it is, making all the rugby decisions at the same time as they let go of the national team head coach. And now that could mean Franco, and it could mean a reshuffling of Glasgow need a new coach, and what happens does Sean get a 1-year contract? So where are we at with that? I think you need somebody who's been in that type of role and been experienced. I know people have their opinions about David Nucifora and the way he works, the fact he's in Australia a lot of the year. I think just to have somebody of that experience, I think the inference is that Al Kellock is the man to take over. But I would hate, and Al's got loads of experience from a business point of view, not necessarily though from the high performance, the hiring and firing of coaches. So I think keeping Nucifora on beyond his current contract is not a bad idea. And it also gives Al Kellock, or whoever the next performance director is, somebody to lean on that has been there and done it, got the T-shirt and done a reasonable job. If not with Scotland, maybe elsewhere.
Yeah, plenty there.
Talk about stuff that is happening today.
And stuff that I actually kind of understand.
Yes.
So let's start with Edinburgh, 5:30, tea time kickoff. I won't quite make it back in time for Strictly, but I'll be able to keep an eye on it after the game. Interesting selections. Obviously, Ospreys, Wales have got a game which is at the perfect time of the year for them to be playing South Africa at home. No doubt they are gunning for a victory against the Springboks.
By the way, I mean that could get I don't want it to.
I reckon they'll introduce fair play at half time and they'll mix up the teams, and some of the South African forwards will go into backs, and they've only got one back on the bench, so they've gone a 7-1 bench. Wales are going to get absolutely battered.
Did you hear the thing? I was listening to a Razzie press conference earlier in the week, and he said, I think their 24th man is a prop, and then if they get any injuries elsewhere, Dwayne Vermeulen is the only other guy on tour. So he's brought his boots, and he's going to, if there's an injury before kickoff. He's not played since the 2023 World Cup final, but it's all right, lads. We've got Dwayne Vermeulen, who's got 80 caps at number 8. We'll just work it out, and Quagga Smith or somebody else can go and play in the backs if he needs to.
I reckon I
Test
could
match
be
rugby.
I think I could be South Africa's 24th man.
Yeah, I think you could, and I think you'd do all right. I think you could be on the bench today, and you'd come on and be all right.
Genuinely, I think they're gonna have to mix the teams after about 50 minutes and say, right,
Did you say
let's.
50 or 15? Because I think
Well,
I think that I hope somebody's been testing the Principality scoreboard for 3 figures.
oh, there's a big call. There's a
Like
big
I
call.
think that could be really, really ugly.
Yeah,
The one thing I
I'm really
think
really
is
ugly. Come on, let's talk about Edinburgh.
sorry. Let's talk about Edinburgh.
Let's talk about
Uh,
Edinburgh.
the selection is interesting.
Paul Hill's back,
Yes,
but
thank
then
goodness.
Ollie Blythe Lafferty on the bench props have to get on unless Xander's starting. So Ollie Blythe Lafferty going to make his Edinburgh debut, and that's so talking about the future and you saying that when we lose Finn and Sione we might not be as good. Ollie Blythe Lafferty, world class. Freddie Douglas, world class. So the future's bright. Ollie Blythe Lafferty, what a boy. He's an absolute gigantor.
He is. He has every bit of the physical profile you would want in a tight head prop.
And what a game for him to hopefully this makes sense. Right, on you go against Ospreys at home. I mean, his old man will be having absolute kittens. He'll be so excited. But what an opportunity for him. And when you look at that team, Harry Morris now gets to start, which is great. Liam McConnell gets to start. Tom Curry gets to start. Finlay Thompson gets to start. Lewis Wells gets to start. So there's some really interesting things. And you look at a bench, it looks like Dylan Richardson is going to play hooker.
Yes.
We've got a Springbok loosehead to come on. So you've got a Scotland international and a Springbok to come on with Ollie Blythe, Lafferty, and have a crack. And then you stick Marshall on behind you to give a bit of ballast. Like that's quite nice. I'm excited that Connor McAlpine's going to get a shot. Cracking rugby player, really high rugby IQ. There's a lot to get excited about.
Do you know, I actually asked Sean Everett yesterday when we spoke to him about Ollie, and basically the suggestion from my question was, is this a one and done, and we don't see him again till another game like this? And he said, no, I don't. That's not how I want to do this. I want to do it because he's the time's right and he's ready. So the suggestion there is that Ollie Blythe Lafferty could be playing against Glasgow. He could be playing against Toulon. He could play against Bath in the new year. Like there's a lot of faith there, but also, Sean wasn't kind of afraid. I mean, the names he used, and it's in the piece on the site, the names he used when he kind of compared Ollie Blythe Lafferty coming through at 19 to Thomas Dutoy, Franz Malherbe, Stephen Kitsoff, Beeston Tawarira. These are guys that have won World Cups. And you're saying, well, can he be that good? And Sean said, yeah, he can be. So, we had this whole situation with Freddie Douglas before he made his Scotland debut. John DL said he was world class already. But I think the message there from Sean was, look, if we get this right and we look after Ollie, he can be world class. I think we need to temper expectations now. He's going to get one or two wrong because it's a massive step up to professional rugby. But actually, good luck to him. Let's see him have a crack. Let's see Tom Curry at number 8 have a go, because he's looked. I mean, I thought he was brilliant in pre-season. I thought he was unlucky not to get a shot before now. Liam McConnell's virtually a first pick in that Edinburgh squad. Forget all the nonsense about the back row. It's almost right. Who plays 7? Because Liam McConnell's your 6, and in your first choice team, Magnus is at 8 because he's captain. Lewis Wells has never sort of put a foot wrong for Edinburgh. So
hang on. We're not saying Magnus is only in because he's captain.
No, not at all.
Hell of a well.
No, he is also playing hell of a well. But do you know what I mean? He is your captain, and he's going to start. So you've essentially got, apart from rotation there, you've got one spot. Lewis Wells, I think, has been good. I think Edinburgh have got a bit of work to do in the midfield. James Lang's injured, so he misses this week. I worry about that 10, 12, 13 because it hasn't really clicked so far. Sean addressed Duhan's kind of lack of drop in form. Look, I think it's been a difficult 2025 is not a year I don't think Duhan will look back on with much great fondness.
Which is ridiculous when you think he's a British Lion.
When you think he went on a Lions tour, he's taken that Scotland try record again, and he signed a new contract with Edinburgh that's probably worth a few bob. Like, and we're saying like this is probably the most difficult period in his career because he was dropped by Scotland. He's not really found his rhythm at all with Edinburgh this season. So I think there was a bit of suggestion from Sean that there might be a bit of rotation again over the next few weeks, obviously with Europe and 1872 Cup. But I think Duhan's a guy that'll stay in that team for as long as he can. He obviously will have to go through rest protocols with Scotland, but
I think he's going to hat-trick today.
And you know what? He might. I think my caveat to that would be this isn't like in Scotland playing Tonga, but I'm not sure. If Edinburgh win by 20 points today, I'm not sure how much we learn about Edinburgh because of the state of this Ospreys team. They're missing 8 guys, I think, who are playing for Wales and more through injury. So I think I expect Edinburgh to win and win comfortably, but I suppose the challenge for them is to deliver on that because they have been so inconsistent.
I'm really chuffed for Harry Morris. He's put in a shift. He gets picked for Scotland ahead of players at Glasgow.
Yep.
He's a pain in the tonsils. He's intense at training. He doesn't mind smacking folk. He's got a brilliant attitude. He's desperate for this. His mum and dad that will be going bananas when he plays. Tom Curry's old man's looking forward to a liquid lunch before he gets there. I hope he's enjoying himself before he gets there. Ben Muncaster, I spoke to somebody that used to work for Scottish Rugby last night, and they went, I can't believe Ben Muncaster's got 50 appearances. I said, I can't believe it's taken him so long to get 50 appearances. Yes. He spent so long injured, and we still think Ben Muncaster's a young lad. He's not young. He's been around for a long time, but because injuries, this is him only now reaching 50. So it was funny, the impression someone else had was, can't believe he's got 50. He's still, and I was like, I can't believe it's taken him so long to get 50 because he's been the Scotland squad. He was capped. He had a long time out injured. He's back in. So, I mean, he's going to be, and he always is, he's a big golden retriever. Like, he's just the biggest, happiest, most enthusiastic. He'll be absolutely foaming. I'm really excited with that back row. I'm really keen to see how the 3 of them go because they're 3 reasonably homegrown, Scottish, could still be there in 5 years' time. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited by that. And then somebody we've not mentioned, Gilco always, and he's captain, Callum Hunter-Hill, another one who's been away, done pretty well. His stock rose and he's back. He's another one, so you look at that team, that forward pack, Pierre, British Lion, Harry, really hungry, Hilly back in after, a really patchy time at Edinburgh, desperate to get going. Callum back in, Gilco consistent, and then you've got a back row that will be absolutely foaming at the mouth. I think that's a really exciting 8.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
With Dylan Richardson to come on, Bohan to come on, Ollie, Marshall, Magnus, like 5 replacements that you're looking at going, yep, okay, bring them on with 25 minutes to go, and it's going to up an intensity.
And you talked about the combination there, but like if you're bringing a guy on who's 19 at tight head prop, who do you want to bring him on the other side? Okay, let's have a guy that's absolutely picked apart the Irish scrum and gone toe to toe with Tadhg Furlong 7 days ago, and another Scotland international, the guy who Gregor a few weeks ago was telling us was basically the power in the second row. Like, it's not just about who you pack down beside, but having Marshall to kind of lock out that scrum as well is massive. And I mean, what what a chance that is. I think, look, I expect Edinburgh to win, and I expect Edinburgh to win pretty comfortably. I'd say, having watched Edinburgh before, never really that certain that that'll happen. I hope, I think you've talked about the pack. I just hope, as I say, that 10, 12, 13 clicks and they find Lewis Wells, they find Duhan, get the ball in their hands, because as the more Edinburgh get the ball to somebody like Duhan or Wes Houston or Lewis Wells, like, the more enjoyable it is to watch, first of all. But, there is absolutely no worth in paying Duhan big bucks for him to stand and watch pick and goes from 20 metres out.
The just last point in Edinburgh. Two last points. I'm really excited Conor McAlpine to get on. It'll be interesting to see if him and Cammy come on at the same time.
Yeah.
Conor McAlpine is with him, and then Hamish MacArthur. They are two very exciting young nines at Edinburgh. Harry Pat, I hope Wes, future Scotsman, gets to come off and have a bit of rest, because he has to go through quite a lot. I hope Harry Pat comes on at fullback so that Lewis Wells and Duhan get to play full games. Good to see him back. So, yeah, we're travelling in expectation rather than hope for Edinburgh. It should be good. Let's talk Glasgow. Playing another Welsh team. So, and Glasgow rotation is not something that's new to us. You've spoken a bit to some of the Glasgow players this week. There's some good bits on the site.
Yeah, so I think Patrick Schickerling was pretty honest about his experiences of nearly playing for England and then all of a sudden finding out he wasn't eligible, and more actually the toll that took on him. He kind of had this rise from, I think he was playing for Cornish Pirates, then he played a few games for Exeter, then all of a sudden under Eddie Jones he was in the England squad, and it looked like he was going to get capped, and then all of a sudden was told the eligibility criteria he didn't comply, and he was out again. And again, when you're non-English qualified, I suppose you become less valuable, and an English Premiership club. So now he's up here, and look, I hope he's been a guy that's done a job for Glasgow, and he'll have to do again today. He's at tight head, but you look at that Glasgow pack, and there's enough in it. If we've talked about Edinburgh, Jamie Batty left out the Scotland squad. Johnny Matthews likewise. Alex Craig missed out.
You said we were going to stop talking about Johnny Matthews in the Scotland squad. It's me that always brings that up. You said we're not going to talk about Johnny Matthews in the Scotland squad anymore.
Yeah, Yari Oguntibeju is probably on the fringes of being in that mix. Gregor Brown, great to see him back after the head knock against Argentina, I think. Gus Fraser at 7, that's just a typical Franco selection of, here's a hooker who can play in the back row. Mackenzie Duncan gets a go at 8. I'm interested to see how that goes, because we've seen him play on the side of the scrum. But I think a position that Glasgow have very, very good starting options, Matt Fagerson and obviously Jack Dempsey, but maybe lack a wee bit. The Glasgow have got a lot of 4s and 5s that can play 6. They don't necessarily have lots of 6s and 7s that can play 8. You think of somebody like Darge, you'd definitely be looking twice if Darge was off the back of the scrum. So I'm interested to see how that goes. Afshar gets a go at 9, which I think is probably right.
You and I have spoken about 9 a lot, just when we're chatting as we're driving various places and whatever else. And Benny Afshar's a cracking rugby player who can kick goals for fun.
Yeah.
But he's behind Jamie Dobie and George Horn, who appear to be, if you're asking me, Jamie Dobie first choice for Scotland, but Ben White is probably not, is Gregor's first choice for Scotland. So you're looking at Dobie and George Horn being 2 and 3 for Scotland in Gregor's eyes.
Yeah.
But Ben Afshar's quite possibly number 4. But that then means he's not really getting in the Scotland squad, and because he's behind 2 of them at Warriors, he has to watch quite a lot of rugby. So for him to start, but obviously George Horn's on the bench, which means Ben's unlikely going to get to play 80 minutes.
Yeah. Look, it also wouldn't surprise me if at some point one of them shuffles out to the wing, and that is because that is just another Franco thing that nines have to not just be nines but also cover another position, probably the wing. But I think it's a good chance for him, as you say. We've probably done a disservice there to Gus Ward, who probably is the next cab off the rank for Scotland.
I know, but and he's starting for sale, and I just feel like there doesn't appear to have been a lot of belief in that or conviction in that, and I just wonder if there's, I don't know what it is. Maybe in 2 years' time, when a new coach comes in, and maybe George Horn's with Scotland not anymore, and Ben Whiteman, and maybe Gus Ward does jump, but I'm not sure. I feel. Yeah, you're probably right. And Gus Ward would, because of experience and where he's been. You're probably right.
But I do totally get what you mean. It feels like it was given a shot, and it's never kind of come to anything. So I think the other one I'm interested in, and I think I wrote about this last week, is Ollie Smith at 13 again. I'm not. The jury for me is still out as to whether Ollie Smith is an international 13, but I think he does a good job there for Glasgow. I think that combination of him and Stafford obviously worked against America, has worked for Glasgow in the past, and will probably do a fine job. It also means they get Ollie in the team because Josh Mackay is Mr. He's Mr. Reliable at 15. Obviously, Kerr Johnston, 9 months on from debut, gets a first start. So
Gallagher.
Yeah,
Galloway going west.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
So look, I hope it goes well. And then there's a bench that's pretty handy.
Yeah, like talking bench, Gregor Hiddleston is one of the 5,000 hookers that Glasgow have got.
Yeah.
Probably a bit frustrated at not being involved with Scotland. To put it politely, Nathan Macbeth, Sam Talakai. There's depth in the front row at Glasgow. It feels, although at one point they were probably scratching around because they were all unavailable or injured.
Yeah.
But you've then got Max Williamson and Alex Samuel to come on. That's that like there's depth in certain areas. You've got Alex Craig and Jarry starting. That's 4 real potential Scotland when Gilco's done and Scotty Cummings is done. There's a lot there to come in, but they're all at Edinburgh. They're all at Glasgow.
Yeah, and I wrote about that last week. I think there's going to be peaks and troughs. Not everything is that kind of linear path to success for players, and I think Max Williamson 12 months ago was like the next big thing, and he was going to be involved against South Africa. Then he got injured, and he, by his own admission, has struggled since then. I think let's persevere with Alex Samuel and Max Williamson. We don't want to see Alex Williamson in the second row, but we want.
Hey, if the ticket prices keep going the way they are, some folk will.
Well, yeah, but the two of them, I think, could be as a partnership the sort of next long-term Scotland second row partnership. I know there's a lot more to it all that goes into it, but I really like the both of them. And then, look, George Horn and Adam Hastings, the autumn probably hasn't gone the way that either of them would necessarily have liked, and now they get to go for Glasgow. So, yeah.
Right, there's only one name not been mentioned. Ali Miller, like Mr. Consistency, like break glass in case of emergency. Ali Miller, if he was a Springbok, Razzie would have him in the back row and playing at 12. Like he just, what a boy! Just continues to be at a level that you know what you're going to get.
Yep.
Right, Ali, on you come. You got Mackenzie Duncan at 8. On you come, Ali. It's your turn. Like, just what a professional! Like, what a professional! You need Johnny Matthews and Ali Miller in your squad.
You'd have Johnny Matthews in any squad, but yeah, I accept your point.
I'd take him to Canada, Mexico, and America with Scott McTominay next year. I reckon, and he's a very good footballer. Johnny
Yeah,
Matthews.
listen,
He was going to
yeah,
a big Everton fan.
He would do you a not bad job.
Big Edinburgh, big Everton fan.
Big Edinburgh fan, that's a revelation.
Yeah, he's definitely not a big Edinburgh fan. Definitely not a big Edinburgh fan, as we will see in 1872.
Yes.
So we're going for 2 bonus point wins. Tries galore, absolute festivities, crowds going wild, and then everything's good, and we forget about ticket prices and AGMs and national coaches. Is that what we're going for today?
Yes, let's why not? Let's just go for it. Let's bonus point wins, and and all will be well again.
And everybody that's watching is going to subscribe with a Black Friday deal, £12 for 12 months to Scotland Rugby News, and all they folk that try and click on the link and go, can I read it? Why do I have to pay? They're all going to go, do you know what? Bonus point wins. The boys called it on the pod, so we're going to subscribe for £12 for 12 months, and we're going to keep journalism alive, because you didn't get everything for free on the internet. I can say all that stuff. You can't. Yeah. I know what you're thinking. Anyway, some of the stuff this week is, you have to read all about it, because otherwise we're just catching on somebody's opinion on Facebook. You were there, you were asking the questions, you were fronting up to Alec Williamson, you were getting the stories, you're speaking to the players. The coverage is fantastic, so keep it going. £12 for 12 months, folks. Please subscribe, hit us a like if you're on YouTube. Tell your pals, subscribe to YouTube. We'll keep this going. We've got loads more to come.
Yeah, just on that subject, next week is the World Cup draw. So we will know Scotland's pool opponents on Wednesday morning, and then hopefully we're able to jump on Wednesday evening, and we'll maybe do a bit of a discussion, or we'll certainly do it at some point, about where we're at with Scotland's World Cup prospects.
I reckon with Glasgow and Edinburgh getting bonus point wins today, by Wednesday the World Cup draw, we'll probably be able to win the World Cup.
Oh, yeah. Not that anybody will tell you that from Murrayfield, but yeah, Scotland will be favourites.
The expectations on social media will be, let's go and win it. And Gregor will be knighted for his services to Scottish Rugby, and everybody will stop moaning and booing. I'm saying that right at the end so there's not a pile on in the comments.
Yeah. Gary, I will.
Gary Bailey.
£5 in the post.
Gav's brother-in-law. Well played, Gary Bailey. What a boy. You've just made that profile just now exactly. While I was talking. Gary Bailey and some numbers. Great reads, Gav. Keep up the good work. Nice one. Class. Big man. See you at the Hive.
See you at the Hive. Looking forward to it.
Bring your ear defenders. Bruce is back on the mic after flirting with Netball Scotland the last 2 nights. A final word from our sponsor. Scotland Rugby News has been brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. There are thousands of jobs all across Scotland, and you can find the one for you at S1 Jobs. So go on. You've got a bit of time before the rugby kicks off. Look after yourselves. See you next week. It's been a Saturday morning special. It's not like going live with Philip Schofield and Sarah Green. It was with Bruce and Gav, but good fun all the same. Cheers, fella. See you soon.
Cheers.